Hello and welcome back. Today we're getting back to work on the Rover P6. This is the 1971 Rover 3500s North American version. And what the plan is for today is just to reinstall the alternator. So, a few days ago, I was working on the air conditioning and I was able to get it back to work. The problem was the pulley on the AC when the clutch would engage, it put a lot of pressure on the whole pulley system, the belts and everything, and it inadvertently broke the bearing on the alternator. So the car kept on squealing, making noise and everything. And so what I did was just take the alternator off, and I took it to a rebuild shop in Longview, Texas, called Richard's Alternator Service, and they were able to replace the bearings, go over the alternator, and get everything, put it back to work for $75. Very affordable, very reasonable. If you have an alternator that's old, I really recommend just trying out a rebuild shop real quick. You'd be surprised at what they can do. Especially since if I had done a rebuild of the same alternator. Not a rebuild, excuse me, but I bought a rebuilt version. This alternator right here, I think it's called the AWS 11, I think. This one would cost anywhere between $400 to $600. Now there is a more modern, better version of this, but it has a internal regulator, and this one uses the external regulator. When you do one of those upgrades and you go with the ones with the internal regulators, you do have to do some wiring changes, because you see on this one we have 3 plugs here, wire right here, and of course this condenser right here. Now all that is part of a system that goes in the car with this voltage regulator that's along the passenger door panel, and a relay that's underneath the dashboard, and all those have to work together just to charge the system. If one of those things are off, the car will run and everything, and the alternator will be working, but it's actually not sending a charge through the system. This is something you see a lot of time in these older British cars, where they'll always tell you, make sure your alternator light is working. On the dashboard there should be a little light, red or orange, and it should light up as soon as the car turns on and there's power. It should turn off. If that light's not working, it's as simple as just that little bulb not even working. The car will run, alternator will be running, but it's sending no voltage anywhere. So, like I said, luckily they were able to rebuild this. Everything was actually working fine on it, but they went through over it, replaced the bearings, and I'll be putting it back on. Okay, so you see our alternator just connects to right here. There's the bracket right there, and there's the adjustment for the pivot, so you can adjust the belt. Another thing to keep in mind if you decide to swap out the original and use a more modern version, besides the wiring, just make sure the arm is going to line up to here. You'll see a lot of times if you want to use another British version, like from the Minis or sometimes from the MGs, the arm won't be on this side, but will be on the opposite side. So just keep that in mind. I think the term is the pivot arm should be on the left-hand side. I think, yes, left-hand side. So just keep in mind for that. Otherwise, you'll buy one and then you'll find out the arms are not, the pivot arm is not matching up to the adjustment brackets, and it'll be just a pain. You have to do the return and all that. So, what we have here, you see the 3 wires, the original ones right here. We have our large wire right here, which connects to the big connection right here. Then these 2 field wires will connect to field 1 and field 2. This is field 1 and this is field 2, right here. This wire on by itself is going to connect to this point right here in the back. Very simple, like I said. And the other thing we may do is replace the belt. So we have here is a gate belt, code number 7430, made in the USA. Gate's a very good company. I do recommend them if you are looking for a timing belt. We did get this belt right here. It came with the parts when I bought this car. 7430. This one has the V grooves on the bottom. I'm a little hesitant just because They both seem to be old. You can tell. But this one is a 4K belt. I mean, you can see that in Ultra 4K. So, you know, you get better viewage with that belt. I noticed this one has a little bit of cuts and wears on it, and the other one doesn't. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and line all the bolts up, and then we'll just reconnect everything. There's not too much to it when it comes to an alternator replacement. Just making sure when you remove it, make sure you use WD-40 or whichever penetrative oil you like, just for the bolts. Generally, the alternator does come out pretty easily. While you're in this area, thing to look at is, of course, is your water temperature connection right here, so you can get to it right now. And yeah, that's really about it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and set up the alternator and we'll go from there. Real quick. So I decided to replace the belt and I took it off. The biggest thing on the belt removal is because we have the AC pulley on this way, it makes it a little tight just navigating between the bottom pulley and through these two right here between the clutch and the AC idler. So in the end, I decided to just go ahead and go from underneath, just push it through. Since these fans are flexible, I ran it around and then just pushed it through. It worked. Now I'll go ahead and give it a try to get the other one through, and I'll let you know how that works. And of course, also take off all this stuff here just to get into this area. It's only held by the two bolts here. This thing's held by bolts on the side, and of course for the water hose right here. The top one usually won't have any water in it. It doesn't have it until the car starts moving. It's just the bottom one that will. Alright, so let me go ahead and I'll route the new one in and I'll let you know how that goes. Alright, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's the sounds of crickets in the background. You might have guessed, it took quite a while. I mean, from daytime, it's now night. And yeah, so I took the old one off and I fitted that one that was in this old container, so who knows, maybe even it might even be a used one. Maybe it's not even new, but oh man, there was nothing looked too wrong with the old one, except a few little cracks and all that, and didn't have that little V-belt design. I highly recommend, if you have something like that, just because you have a new part, don't always replace it. Who knows? It took a while. Anyways, the easiest way to do it, of course, would be you can take off this pulley right here, this idler pulley. If you have an air conditioner model, that's the only thing that causes problems. If you don't have it, if you don't have an AC model, then that pulley shouldn't be there in theory. I'm not sure on the non-AC ones, but that's really what caused all the problems, just trying to get it between that little crack right there. Way you do it, just run it through here, then go underneath and pull it and use a screwdriver to something to pry it, pull forward, pull it, and then it'll get through. So now we got our belt on. Oh man, that was, like I said, extremely painful. Throughout that whole thing too, I didn't catch it on video, but my hood fell right on top of my back. You can see the pry bar has bent. I was reaching for a screwdriver and I elbowed the bar, and next thing you know, the hood fell on me. That's not the first time I had a Rover hood fall on me. I had a Defender I was trying to sell one time, and it had those pry bar where you lift it up and then it snaps into place. I remember I was showing the car to someone who was interested in buying it, and I had lifted the hood and I was talking to him, and next thing I know, the hood falls and hits my hand. I'm glad it was just me and not the person who was buying it, but still. Anyways, okay, we got the boat on. Let's get the alternator on. So I'm going to start aligning this up, and I'll see you here in a bit. Alright, so the alternator is on. It was a little difficult, only because I couldn't find my reference photo before I took it off. But the belt went on very easily, that was no issue. The alternator has two pivot points, one right here and then one on the bottom. So those are the main ones you got to put in and loosen to adjust your belt, and then you can tighten things down. Now I did tighten it, but it's still very loose. Kind of see. I will double check the tech manual and see how much play is allowed. I gave it a test already, and it's working perfectly. No more squealing, anything. It's charging well. When I put on gas, the animator goes all the way, saying it's charging. When it's in idle, it's not in the middle, but rather a little bit towards the side. So it looks good. Even though the belt is kind of loose, it's about as much tightening as I can do, but I will double check on that. Overall, everything, it was a simple change. It was just running the belt through without removing the pulley. Again, I don't know. I think if you don't have the AC model, you don't have that idler pulley, so it's not really an issue. But if you do need to remove that pulley, there's a bolt right there. That's a pinch bolt. The problem is, if it's never been removed before, it's going to be kind of tight. So just keep that in mind. With a little bit of time and patience, you can run it right through, and you don't have to take the pulley off. As you can see, I have the belt also for the air conditioning off. When I was testing out, the bearing was busting. At first, I thought it might have been anything with the AC line, whether the pulley there, or even the compressor. But it was actually the alternator. I do have a new AC belt, and I will be putting that one on, just because the one I took off was the original Rover belt from when this car came out in '71. Every other belt, you can tell they had at least been changed at one point, so I will be putting that one on. Like I said, it was a simple video today. We got the alternator on. There's no whining. Actually, you know what? Let me turn the car on so I can show you. Turn the radio off. As you can see, the amperage. Let me turn the light off. Oops, never mind. As you can see, the amperage is not at 0, and it is at idle. So it looks good there. And then if I put on the lights, it goes to not quite 0. Okay, that is 0, but a little bit charging. Let's go back to the engine. As you can see, the belt is working. It's just that bottom part right there, which kind of snaps around. But no noise or anything. Everything sounds good. The pulley is working very well. And then when I put gas on, it goes up just as it should. Alright, so like I said, I'm going to consider that done for tonight. Tomorrow I'll take the car in to the shop. Hello. And we'll do an oil change. It's a new day, and we got the Rover down here to the shop, where we're going to do an oil change on it. So yesterday I was able to look into my records, and I found my reference photo. The alternator and everything was set up just like how it was in my photo, at least from when I took it off. And the tech manual says there should be play between 11 to 14 millimeters on the belt. So there was a little bit more than that. It just needs to be tightened, but overall on the alternator everything was fine. Today we're just going to do an oil change. It's very simple. It's overdue for one. I'll be using 20W50 and a new filter also. And for oil and filter, For oil, I recommend using a classic oil just because of the zinc, high zinc levels in it. This is a flat tappet engine, 20W15. Valvoline VR1 is probably one of the best ones you can get off the shelf here in the US. Walmart usually carries this for about $25. Filter, Wick filter, is a good brand. 51258. Generally, filters nowadays are all fairly good. Even Frams are pretty good. The high-end Frams are good. The mobile one is very good. The K&N filters, Wix filters. The biggest thing with this is because the engine on the V8 engine really likes for frequent oil and filter changes. So generally you don't want to put a too expensive filter. You do want a good quality one, but know that you'll be replacing them quite often, that's all. It uses about 6 liters of oil, so it'll be one whole bottle and then a little bit from another bottle. So we'll do that. Right, what I wanted to do first is I'm just going to let the car run a little bit more. I took it out for a short drive, but I want the oil to be nice and hot right before we go ahead and do the swap. Like I said, not too much today, just some oil change. Alright, so we had the engine run for about 25 minutes and idling. So the oil should be nice and warm, and we'll go ahead and drain it here soon. For jacking on the front, you can use the cross member, which is right here. It's a very strong, stable area that you can put the jack on. As for the jack stands, I'm not too sure. Maybe you can fit one over here on the sides. You can see the jack right here takes up a lot of the space. But in the front end, yeah, the cross member is a safe spot to jack the car up with. Besides that, then you can also still use the jacking points on the side. But if you're not comfortable in using those, I would recommend the cross member. Okay, so then we'll get the drain pan, and then we'll start undoing the bolt and get the oil draining. Okay, so I already loosened it. It is going to be a 11/16, I think. Let me get that for you here. A 13/16, excuse me. It'll be a 13/16 socket. The biggest thing you want to make sure is watch yourself, especially if you warm up the engine. This thing is going to be hot. You can see it already leaking, and since it's loose, you have to get it by, sometimes you might have to use your hand. We'll just start it off slowly, using a rag here, and then we'll move it out of the way. There's a specialty tool that lets you do this from far away. Really, there we go. And there it is. It does look very watery. But, yeah. Nice, it was well due for an oil change. Good there. Good. Oh, there it is, some more. Alright, so we're just going to let it drain for a while. I'll leave it here. I'm going to go do a few things, then come back and we'll take care of the filter. The filter is right here. As you can see, it's also very dirty, and it's going to also be a little bit of a pain. We'll have to move the jack out of the way. So we'll get the car stabled somewhere and then get in there, take it off, put a new filter on. So we had it drain for a while. It looks like it's done. All the oil drained into the container, so we were able to fish out our plug. The only thing I want to make sure you remind you is on the plugs there's always a copper washer. Just make sure to just swap it out, and that's really just it. You don't want to have a leak and it's something just because of you forgot to swap the washer out. So that's it. Oil filters are pretty simple. If you're lucky, it will come off by hand tightening. If you're unlucky, you're gonna have to use a filter wrench or strap. This one, luckily, since this car has been getting regular service, it was as simple of a little bit of arm strength and it came off. So right now I'm letting it drain out before we pulled it off. There are some filters too that have a little, like a socket on the end that you can put a wrench to, and that helps a lot. I know the KN filters have that, and it's very handy, especially when they're really on, they're tight. And this one, the frames have that texture bottom for better grip, and it worked really well right now. So like I said, filters, you do want to try to add some oil to it, as just so the pump doesn't go off dry. And this case, you do have this bar, it's kind of getting in the way. Don't have to put it all the way filled, just try to get some oil in there. It really just helps for the oil pump. Before I forget, it's not very common now, but it's something you always want to watch out for. You see on the oil pump, make sure there's no oil, O-rings left on it. Right there. Make sure there's no O-rings or anything left from the filter, because when it comes down to when you want to put the new filter on, it will cause it so it doesn't get tight enough, and next thing you know, you're leaking from there. Like I said, most of these filters now, the O-ring and everything is pretty much glued onto it, and it's on there pretty good. In the past, the O-ring will pop off and it will stay on to the oil pump, and if you don't take it off, you would have just had your filter would have started leaking once you try to start it on. So yeah, as always, just make sure it's clean. The O-ring is on the old filter. On this case, I checked it before I tossed it. The ring was still on. We have our filter set up, and we're about to put in the oil. Again, on the filter, make sure to check the O-ring. I said that, and I had a lot of trouble putting on my new filter. It turned out that the O-ring has slipped from the holders on the filter, so it was a little disappointing. Wix is usually a very good brand. In this case, I would say it's probably because of chipping. One of the holders was a little bent. I just had to bend it out, put the O-ring back on. But I also made a big mess. Yeah, so we're just going to top off the oil. Everything there be good. It's about 6 liters. I'll put on one whole can, and then go check on the dipstick and see how much more we need from another can. And that should be it. So let me go top. So as you can see, the engine is running nicely. There doesn't seem to be any oil leaks on the floor, so we're good to go there. One 5-gallon bottle, the big bottle, took it all the way to low, and then I put a 1 more liter from another bottle, and that took us to high. We'll let it run for a bit, and once the oil circulates and gets in, we'll check the oil level again. We'll probably have to top it off a little bit. Good. I checked the oil level. We're just a tad under high, so we'll just leave it. Roughly 6 quarts is good enough. 20-50 does go a little slow depending on your funnel you use. As you can see, I made a big little mess right there. It just spilled. And again, just the main thing is to make sure the O-ring on your filters is on your filter, not off. And 20-50 works best. At least that's what I find on these engines. Try to find one with Hijink. Like say here in the US, Valvoline VR1. It's generally the easiest one to get around here. Sometimes you find Castro Classic. That's also pretty good. And they do sell Mobile One. This does sell a 1550 that has a lot of zinc, but it's a full synthetic. I generally find on these older cars, on these older engines, if they haven't been rebuilt, semi-synthetic works fine, conventional works good. Synthetic sometimes it can open a problem of oil leaks. Not so much because the synthetic is bad or anything, it's just that it cleans very well. Things that a piece of gunk or something that's been in there that's sealing an opening or so, the synthetic will clean it out, and next thing you know, you have an oil leak. But in its defense too, I find that synthetic oils do, well, eventually seal up anything on there too. But it's generally, it takes a long time, so I don't really advise synthetics on engines that haven't been rebuilt or that you don't know of personally. If the car has regular oil changes, then synthetic usually works very well. The other thing too is that synthetics last a lot longer, and these engines usually prefer more frequent oil changes. Again, on the filter, just for product for numbers. If you ever want to swap it out, here's Wix 51258. You can cross-reference that and find some other ones. Mobile one, I think it's 203. It's also a very good filter. For additives, I do use additives on the Rover V8s. I have done it on the Range Rover Classic. I find that the liquid moly engine additive that you find in AutoZone works really well. It drops the RPMs down. Another one I have used was called Pectron engine conditioner. It is a little pricey. It's about $45–50 a bottle. I found that one really lowered the RPMs down on the V8, on the Rover V8s. In my case, on the Range Rover Classic, when I used it, I would go 90 miles an hour and I still wouldn't be at 3,000 RPMs. So it worked very well in that case. The downside though was it did confuse the transmission, because when you were going up a hill, it would swap between fourth and third quite often, because it would want to go to fourth, but because the RPMs were so low, it will switch back down to third, and then it'll go back to fourth. Overall, I probably wouldn't use Pectron on this one because we have the 3-speed auto. Then again, I think it may actually work best for this because it is a 3-speed auto. But if you do want to go one, you can try the liquid moly one first. It's about $10 in AutoZone, $10 to $11, and it will lower the RPMs down. The other thing I have used also is, there's actually a local company here. It's about 40 minutes from where I live. I think they do sell online though. It's called Motorper. I have used this for a while, and like I said, a local. I've been to the shop, and it came to me too. And I use their motor tune-up on pretty much any car here. I don't use it on the Minis because of their wet clutch system, but I use it on any of the cars they have with regular, normal engine style. Like the Citroen here, I used it on this one, and that's just, like I said, a standard 4-cylinder engine. But on cars like this one here, the Valvoline Plus Princess, it uses a mini wet clutch engine, similar to like a motorcycle. I'm generally try to avoid engine additives on them, so I wouldn't use it on there or on the Clubman. But this is a good additive. They do ship online. Like I said, it's a very good company. The local, support local companies. The other one I do like to use from them, besides their tune-up, I have an old pamphlet, is that one right there, the injection cleaner. I use that for all the carburetors, not just for injection. I find that one works extremely well. It's just your typical, add it to your your tank and see the results. Even though it says it's for fuel injection, it works just as good for our carburetors here. Cleans the needles and area in there. Well, that's it for today. It was just a simple oil change. At least give you some product codes, so for reference, if you do have one of these V8s, you can see that this stuff does work. And yeah, okay, well, thank you again, and I hope to see you soon. We'll get back onto Citroen.